Hi, so this week I'm installing an eXtremeRate Steam Deck shell replacement. So I've been wanting to do this mod for a while, but the screen replacements always put me off. I originally wanted to do a white one, and then I decided against it, and then I was looking on the eXtremeRate website, and I came across this Game Boy version, and I decided it was time to take the plunge. So as you can see, this is all the contents. It comes with several different colour buttons. It comes with all the parts that you're going to need. Flippers, screwdrivers, replacement screws, everything's in there. And before I forget, you can get a 10% discount on the eXtremeRate website using the voucher code in the description. So let's get down to the mod. So first things first, majorly important, make sure you remove your SD card before you start. If you don't, you're going to break it. So on the back, we've got 8 screws that need to be removed. I'm going to use this iFixit magnetic pad to keep all the screws in the right locations, which I will show as I'm going along. I'm also going to use the screw kit that came with it. So first off, we need to remove all 8 screws. These are slightly different in different locations, that's why I'm trying to keep them in the right place. And I've got my iFixit kit here, so there's a few things that we're going to be using as we go along. So first off, I'm going to use this plastic clipper. So the kit does come with one. I just find these are a little bit stronger. So run along the top first, then run along the sides, and it should peel away pretty easy. And then just go along the edges, along the bottom, and then it'll all clip out. This is why we need to remove the SD card prior. And the back comes off nice and easy, nothing attached to that. Then we need to remove the heat shield that covers the battery connection. So there's 3 screws, just take them out, wiggle it off. And then the first thing that we do as soon as this comes off is we need to disconnect the battery. So this just slides to the right. And now we can start removing all the internals. So the heatsink comes out first. So this just wiggles out. As you can see, we're going to need to put the fresh thermal paste on that later. And now we can start removing the right analog stick. So 3 screws, a latch, and it gently lifts out. The Steam Deck's very modular, so it's really easy to take apart. The hardest bit is remembering how to put it back together. Then a couple of screws on the shoulder buttons, and now we can disconnect all the ribbon cables to remove the right daughter board. A couple of screws in this, just take them out, try and keep them all together. Disconnect the ribbon cable that goes to the main motherboard. And then this shoulder button just needs to be levered off, so just get a plastic clipper and get underneath, push it to the right, and it will gently move away. Carefully don't lose the spring. A couple more screws here, and then we're finally going to be able to remove the full daughter board. So the whole thing lifts out, so we move that away, and then we've got a couple more screws which hold the other shoulder button, so we take that out. And now we need to remove the right trackpad. So there's 4 screws in the trackpad itself. This comes out, and then the other part of the trackpad, there's 4 screws in this, and again this gently wriggles out underneath the motherboard. We'll be swapping that a bit later. Now we can move on to the other side. So now we're going to be removing a couple of these ribbon cables. We'll just disconnect them all, and then it'll make it easier for when we remove everything. So the left analog stick, 3 screws out, it easily lifts out. And then again, just get a lipper, push it to the left or the right. It just needs to get over the latch, and then you can wiggle it left and right, and then that will remove it. There's a couple of screws underneath here, take them 3 out. There's one in the corner. And then we can move the screws in the daughter board itself, and then the whole board will lift out as long as all the ribbon cables are being released. Another screw in the corner, and then this button comes out, nice and easy, lift that out. And then we're onto the left trackpad, so we take the board off for the trackpad, 4 screws out of that, and then that'll lift out. And then there's 4 screws in the actual trackpad itself, we take them 4 out, and then that lifts up and away. Now we can take the motherboard out, so there's a couple of screws here. Just gently give it a wiggle. There's a few things still attached to it. I thought it would just lift out, but didn't realise. The first thing we're going to do is remove the SSD. So we wiggle that out, and then we just need to peel this protective cover off. Keep that to the side. There's two cables that need to be connected underneath this, and there's a small black connector at the bottom, and then there's another black connector at the top. Just very carefully wiggle them out. They're not in there tight, they come out pretty easy, and then the motherboard should come out. And I just noticed there's another ribbon cable at the bottom, so just get the latch and gently wiggle that out. Now we can remove the fan. So there's a couple of screws in that just lifts away nice and easy. And then the last thing we need to do is remove the speakers. So we just get some tweezers and then gently lift them away. So just be very careful that you don't want to damage it, but they are stuck in there with some double-sided tape. So I peeled off the foam backing that covers it to make them a little bit more aesthetic, but the replacement kit does actually come with these, so this is a necessity. And then we're nearly there, we just need to remove the audio board. So there's a screw in the top, just need to wiggle out, disconnect the connections. Now moving on to the LCD screen connector. So underneath here, just gently lift it all off again. Don't need to be pulling too hard. And then we just need to lift the latch, and then this will remove the LCD ribbon cable, just wiggle out. And as you can see, I've laid everything out on my magnetic mat, so everything's in the right place. All of the screws are in the locations next to where they should be going. So hopefully when I put it back together, it's all going to be nice and easy. Fingers crossed. I've never fully took one of these apart before, so it's a learning curve, so I'm hoping this is going to make it easy. So now we're going to be moving on to the hardest part, removing the screen. So this is where you do need some extras. So a decent suction cup and some lippers are required. So I'll just remove my screen protector. And now I've got a hot air gun. So this has two settings, hot and hotter. So I'm not putting on the hottest, I'm putting on the lower one at the moment. And then all we need to do is keep moving the heat. So we need to direct it into the different areas. So the first couple of minutes I just go around all the edges, keep going round and round, just take your time. You don't want to be too close, you don't want to start melting the plastic, you don't want to be damaging the screen. The idea is just to try and loosen up all the adhesive. So go around the edges, and then once you've done that for a minute or two, that's when we can start getting a little bit closer and using it on the edges as we go from edge to edge. So just keep going round. I'm not fast forwarding any of this, I'm trying to do it in real time so you can see it. So I get me decent suction cup, I place it in a corner, it just pops on, and then you just gently lift up. If it's not starting to lift up, then it's not melted enough. So I'm trying to get these plastic clippers underneath. Never use metal, because this will scratch the paint underneath the edge of the board. It has to be plastic. So it didn't lift up enough. It didn't lift up at all. So we're back to the heat. Just keep going round, and I'm just going to focus on the edges. All we need to do is get it under one corner, and then once it's underneath, we'll be able to work our way around. So we'll just keep going round and round. I just keep touching the screen, seeing how warm it gets. So I'll get me decent suction cup on it again, push down, and then if you get any kind of movement, that's what we need. So we just need to get the lipper underneath, and then there you can see it went in nice and easy. So we just gently move it around. We need to be moving, trying to remove the adhesive. So I've got that bit stuck in the bottom, and now I'm going to get another one. So if you've got more than one, it works. Just leave it there, then just run it along the edge. If it starts getting hard, then you know you're going to have to apply a little bit more heat. So I'm going to pop that bit in the corner again, and then run that along the edge, right to the top. Just keep repositioning it, making sure that it's all in the best position for you. Keep putting as many lippers underneath that you've got, so you don't want it dropping back down, making it hard. So just get this back in. You don't want to be pushing too far in, because you don't want to be damaging the screen. You're going to have to go in a few mil, and then just run it along. As I said, if the adhesive is warm enough, it'll be able to lift off. So we go back in, and then it starts getting a little bit tough around this edge. So it's starting to cool down. So there's no point trying to force it. So I've come to a little bit of a standstill there, so you just get the hot air back out and then run it along the edge. And then we'll get our lipper back in, and then we just run it back underneath and then just keep running it along. And then hopefully we can go from either end, and then we can run it round and we're releasing all the adhesive and the screen is going to come out. So I'm applying a little bit more heat one more time, just around the edge bit. I don't want to be pulling it, I don't want to be cracking the screen or damaging it. Just apply more heat, the adhesive starts loosening, twisting it round, and then there we can see it's starting to loosen up enough. And I'm going to be almost there, so we can give it a little bit of a wiggle, and the screen starting to lift out. No pressure's being put on it, and then it lifts away. And then there you can see, nice and easy. This was the bit that I was fearing the most, and it was actually a lot easier than I expected. Just have to take your time and make sure you've got plenty of heat so the adhesive melts. Also, a good suction cup really makes the difference. So as you can see, the screen's perfect. So this is the hardest bit, removing the old sticky adhesive. So this part, I used a little bit of isopropyl and I just scraped away using my lippers, and occasionally I used some tweezers. But it's the screen which is the hardest bit. So you don't use anything metal on this because you'll be scratching the paint and it will be marked on the other side. I also personally didn't want to try and use the isopropyl because I didn't know whether it would take off any of the paint. So I just had to use plastic frame and try my hardest. So now we just need to remove these screws out of the frame on the front. And then flip it over, and then there's 4 screws on the back. Just remember where they're going. You should be going straight back in. And then this whole main body carefully removes. So we're almost there for the initial transplant. Now we just need to remove this ribbon cable on the top. So again, be really careful. This is stuck down by adhesive, so you want to gently pull it away. You don't want to be ripping it, and you also don't want to be putting it in and then doing any kind of damage to the cable itself. So I'm just using my tweezers very carefully to remove the adhesive underneath, and then we'll just pry it up. So it's stuck down in 3 sections at the end, in this middle. Same again, pair of tweezers, just lifting it away, slid underneath and then pushed out. And then same again at the end, and then we'll be able to lift it away, and then we've got a nice removed cable without any damage. So now we can start building it up into the new one. So we get our Game Boy shell. We just need to, everything we've just done, we need to do in reverse order. So this goes back in. If you've got a little bit of adhesive still left on it, push it down and stick it in. If not, you might need to add it. Mine was sticky enough, so it was okay. Managed to keep it in place. Next up, we've got some buttons at the top that need to go in. So this is the rubber membrane, and then these are the buttons that I'm going to be using. So they just push into place. There's some little location holes that they click into, and as with everything eXtremeRate do, they're good quality and it all holds in. So we just push that into the top, click it in. Now we get the main body. So this just goes in again into place. Make sure that you don't trap any of the cables that we've just laid down. Just pop that in either side, click it along the top, click it along the bottom, and then that's all okay in the right location. Then we just need to reinsert the screws, so the 4 go in the back. And then we've got a couple that go in the front, so just watch where I'm putting them. They're all the same size. And then we'll flip it back over, and then this is what I was saying about the speaker covers. So I can take the old ones off, I can peel off the new ones, and then pop them into place. So we've got nice shiny new ones, which are all nice and sticky both sides. Just do that for the left and the right. Now we're going to be reattaching the screen. So as long as you've cleaned it all perfectly, then this should be not a problem. So this is the screen adhesive. So these are the sticky pads that go on. So just again, follow the locations that I'm using now. You need to carefully put them along the edge. You place them all in, and then you'll peel the blue plastic away. So there's 4 parts, obviously along all the edges. Just make sure you're using the ones on the right side. So this bottom one confused me a little bit because it didn't seem to quite go right to the edge. There was a bit of space on the left, which I wasn't really sure why. So I ended up applying some of my own double-sided tape that I had. So just peel away the blue plastic backing. You have to be careful because if you pull too hard, then it is going to pull the plastic off itself. So just go nice and slow. You might need to use your tweezers to convince it to stay on in certain places. So just pull off all the edges, and then we're going to be ready to be able to reattach the screen in a minute. So the screen's all nice and clean. I've just put my screen protector back on it just to make it a little bit easier so it didn't get any damage while it was on the side. And now all I need to do is push it back in. So again, I've took it off and putting it back on. The reason I'm putting it back on is I'm putting some clips around the edges to keep it in place. So I'm going to keep it like this for half an hour or so to keep it nice and tight. I just need to remove this light diffuser from the old switch onto the new one. The kit might have come with it, but I couldn't quite find it, so I was just removing the older one. And then we just need to attach some more button membranes. So this is another one. We just get the plastic out of the new kit. We'll attach the new button onto it. So this is the power button, and then we can pop it into place. Just use some tweezers to push it in, and now we can reattach the screen. So just gently pull back the ribbon cable, open the latch, slide it in. Be very careful, you don't want to be damaging the latch before you even get a chance to use it properly. So use your tweezers if you need to gently push it in. Make sure the latch is pushed over, and then you can put the tape back down, keep it nice and secure. The fan can go back in. We'll have a couple more screws back in there. Make sure they're all nice and tight. Then we'll do the audio board next. So just reconnect these two cables. That one goes in there, and then we've got one at the top which pushes in. A couple of screws go in. Push the cable back in. And then that part's done. We can reattach the motherboard. So there's a cable on the back that we need to do first. Push that in, flip the cable over, and then this front one here, we attach that ribbon cable, push it on, make sure you're putting them in properly and you're putting the latches across, otherwise you don't have to come back and have to fully strip it down to do another repair. So push the motherboard in, make sure none of the wires are trapped, pop your screws back in, keep checking as you go along, and then just reconnect all the ribbon cables. So every time you attach something in, make sure you attach all the cables that are corresponding to it. This cable at the top, this cable at the bottom, and then we've got these two little cables that need pushing on. That can be a little bit fiddly. Just try and line them up and push straight down. Then we can put our little protective plastic piece over the top, push that in. So as you can see, it comes with 3 different sets of coloured buttons, so you can use any kind of combo that you want. So I'm going to go with this combo at the moment. Got to go with the original Game Boy Color buttons, so pop them in the right place, and then the button goes at the top. And now we just need to pull off this shoulder button. So it's got the membrane there. So the membrane, I'm going to use the original one because I always believe the original membranes are the best. And then the shoulder button, it just basically pulls off. So I'm making a bit of a meal of it. It's hard to show it on camera, but it just pulls away. And then we'll get the new one, the grey one, and then it just pushes straight down. And then we'll pop it into position, and then we'll get it all lined up. And then pop it screw there, and then one in the corner. Same on the other side, so we get the D-pad button at the top. We'll get the membrane from the other side. And then the same again with the shoulder button, so this is the grey one. Make sure you put the spring on it. So pull the black one off. Just trying to line it up as best you can see. So it sort of pushes straight down in a little canal. And then it clips on. And then it goes on nice and easy. So we just line it all up, make sure it's lined up with the holes. And then 2 screws go in there, keep it nice and secure. So the touchpad next. So first thing we need to clip it off in this little hole here. So clip it in there using your lipper, and then down the sides, and then it should separate. So move it around, clip, and then the 2 should pull away. Be careful though, because there's a lot of wires connected, so don't be too heavy handed. So as you can see, it separates, and there's a ribbon cable joining the 2. So first off, we disconnect that ribbon cable so we can move the base bit away. So this is the part that needs to be removed. So there's two ways of doing it. This is the original way, which I made a meal of. So I just use a lipper and I just constantly tried to get underneath. It's really hard, it's really tight. I eventually got underneath. I had to use a couple of lippers to do it, and I broke a couple in the process. So this isn't the best way to do it. When I do the other one, I'll show you a much better way. So it's stuck on with some heavy duty tape. So we'll just get it underneath. We need to release as much tape as possible, and then finally we can move it out. So we get the main board out. So this is the replacement. So it comes with a couple of sticky pads. So there's a groove cut out in the corner. So stick this pad down and then stick the sticky pad down as well. Push it down as best you can, get your tweezers and then remove it. As you can see with this one, I've got an air bubble. An air bubble's bad. When you try and use the touchpad later on, it won't work very well. So you need to remove any air bubbles. Then we can get the board in. Again, there's a notch in the corner, so it only goes in one way. Push it right down nice and tight. We get the board that we removed before, reconnect the ribbon cable. So push in, push the latch over, and then it just simply folds over and it clicks together. So it's nice and simple, and then it's nice and secure. And now we've got our nice green track pads. So we just get this into place straight away. So we just need to wiggle it in, get into position. Be careful not to damage any of the bendy bits, because this is what keeps it nice and floating and makes it work perfect. But don't do any damage to them. Pop it in and then 4 screws in. Make sure they're nice and tight, but again, don't over tighten. Then we get the attached motherboard that goes over the top of that, and then there's 4 screws that go into that as well. And then that's the right touchpad done nice and easy. So we just pop the little button underneath there with the membrane that goes over the top, and then the right daughter board can go back in. So just be aware of all the ribbon cables that need to be connected. Line up as best you can, make sure nothing's getting trapped, like the speaker cable, and just keep moving it all around. Pop your screws back in, and then we just need to go around and then reconnect all the ribbon cables. So this is the main thing. You don't want to be missing anything, because this is where you'll start it up and it's not going to work. Nice and slow, take your time, make sure every ribbon cable is being reconnected. This little connection here goes in, and then the little one at the bottom too, and then this little one next to it. So now the left touchpad, so again, just get your lipper in to the corner and then just lever it off either side, and it will be able to separate nice and easy. So just give it a little bit of a pull. Be careful not to do too hard. Release this ribbon cable. So with this one, I decided to try a little bit of hot air. So I flipped it over. Again, I put it on the hot setting, not the hottest, and I just left it on there for a couple of seconds until it started to get nice and warm. You don't want to be leaving it on too much, you don't want to be damaging it, you don't want to be melting it, you're just trying to release the adhesive. So leave it on, and then I got a lipper and then I popped it underneath, and then as you can see, it pretty much lifted up straight away. It's a lot easier than the way I was trying to do it without any kind of heat. So I would totally recommend using heat to remove this. So again, new double-sided sticky tape in, give it a push down, get your tweezers, lift it off, and as you can see on this one, it's almost perfect. So we just need to put the board back in into the notch in the corner. Like I said, there's only one way. Push it right down nice and firm, get rid of any kind of air bubbles, reconnect the ribbon cable, push that in, flip the latch over, make it nice and secure. And then we just need to flip it over, click it back together, and now we've got our other trackpad, which is all nice and secure and ready to go back into its housing. We put this button in, we put this membrane in, and then we'll get our left trackpad. Again, wiggle it in nice and careful. You don't want to be doing any kind of damage to the supporting arms. It just needs to go under this bracket on the left. Pop that into place. 4 screws go in each corner, nice and tight. And then the motherboard goes in over the top of it. Pop that into the right location. and then 4 screws into this as well. So same again, the left daughterboard now goes in, so pop it into the right location. Make sure you remove all the ribbon cables that nothing's getting trapped. They're all okay. Pop your couple of screws back in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Reconnect the ribbon cables on the sides. Just go along, push them all in, push the latch across. Make sure they're all fully seated so everything's going to work perfect. And then this final ribbon cable at the bottom, push it in, pop it across. So next up is the shoulder buttons. So there's a couple of screws in here, so we just need to remove this screw, and then the internals comes out, and then we just pop it straight into the grey one. Same on the other side, undo the screw, remove it, pop it into the grey one, and then the screw back in. So this home board goes in here, a couple of screws in. This is what the shoulder button is going to attach to, so the 3 screws go in. So with this, what you need to do is you need to line up the spring and then hook one side on, so we'll hook the right side on and then sort of push it across to the left to make it clip on nice and easy. Same on this side, 3 screws in, get your button, get the spring lined up, hook on the left side and then push it down on the right, and then as you can see it fits in perfect. Heatsink on neck, so we just give it a clean, get rid of all the old thermal paste on the actual heatsink and on the board itself. Give it a good clean, get rid of all the old one. MX4 I use, just pop that in. I use the perfect amount, push it on, and then 2 screws go in. We'll attach the other one in a bit. Analog stick in next. So line up 3 screws. Ribbon cable goes in. We're getting so close to it now. Left analog stick. Again, 3 screws. Make the ribbon cable connection. Reattach the SSD. So just pop that in, slide it in. Screw it into place. Make sure the heat shield stays on that as well. We can now reconnect the battery because we're pretty much all the way there. So just push it in. Use your lipper if you need to. So I'm going to test it before I've pulled it fully back together. So when it gets stripped down like this, you need to use the charger to turn it back on. So plugged it in, the light came on, press the power button. It can sometimes take a couple of minutes to start up. As you can see, it is starting. And now we've got a fully functioning, starting up Steam Deck. I'm just going to go through, test a couple of buttons, trackpads, etc. Make sure everything's feeling okay. It's all good. So we turn it back off, flip it back over. We can reposition the heat shields. So the 3 screws go back in. Now we just need to do the back plate. So we've got these rear buttons that need to go on. So you just pop them in either side. You just clip under and then clip into place. We've got some adhesive that we need to apply to the metal guard that covers the back of it. You just pop that on there, push it into place. And then we've got this thing, I think it must be something to do with covering the heat or protecting the backing, but this is where it was located on the original Steam Deck. So I'm just popping it back on there. And then I always use the original screws if I can, but these screws are needed to attach the buttons. So there's 4 screws on either side to attach the rear buttons, as the original Steam Deck doesn't have them. And now we just need to clip it back on. So we just line it up. Click it along the top, click it along the bottom, click it into place, and then it's a little bit harder on the edges, especially at the top corners. They just need a bit of a harder push, but they all clip in. If there's any kind of resistance, then you must have put something back wrong, so just go back and double check. So we're done. I can put my SD card back in. I can give it a nice little clean over. As you can see, it's really, really good. It looks amazing. I'm really happy with the finish. The edges are all nice and smooth. The style on the back, the contrast of the greys. It's one of the nicest looking Steam Decks I've ever seen. And I'm really happy that I'd made the decision to do the upgrade. I was worried about the screen replacement, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. And it's actually not a bad mod install. So thanks very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.